Hey, this is Billy Bross with the Simple Marketing for Smart People podcast, where I'm interviewing smart people who have an area of expertise and now they built a business around it. And they're realizing, oh my gosh, that means I've got to do marketing. So I'm joined today by Caroline Donahue. Thank you so much for being here, Caroline. And what is your area of expertise?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think part of the reason that I ended up going into the area I did, which is helping people write books, is that I love the flexibility that being associated with books creates. So it's actually like a sneaky, nested boxes kind of expertise. Because if you're an expert in books, you could be an expert in any kind of books. So that I have a lot of flexibility. Because I think if I was an expert in like, I don't know, machine parts of a particular era, I might get bored. But being an expert in books and writing means there's always something new to learn.
So it sounds like that's important to you. Learning,
Oh,
sounds like you're a very
totally.
curious person.
Absolutely.
That's funny. That reminds me of when I first got started in online marketing and working with other businesses. I really started with online courses and not a particular industry. And for the same reason, online courses are similar, right? I know you're involved with online courses, but it's because
Hmm.
it goes to all these cool niches through online courses. I mean, I would joke that I would do it because I can get the courses for free. So that certainly resonates.
Absolutely.
Okay, so give me more of your backstory then. So how did you take this expertise of helping people with their books and helping people with their writing? And it's one thing to know about that area, it's another to build this whole online business around it. So tell us about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, if you hear me talk about sort of my resume and the experiences I've gone through, I'm given that I think about storytelling and writing all the time, I'm able to create a cohesive narrative that makes it sound like this was all planned out from the beginning. But that would be a total lie. And essentially, I spent a lot of time reading as a kid. And what I really wanted to do was hang out with books, read books, and talk about books with other people. And so throughout my life, I stayed in school as long as I possibly could because that seemed like a socially sanctioned way to continue interacting with books and writing as much as possible. But then eventually I held a series of jobs that to me felt like acceptable ways to still be involved with writing. I was a proofreader at an ad agency. I was the production manager of a catalog for an auction house. So we published a catalog 3 times a year and I managed a team of writers. And so there was all of this, but through it all, I really just wanted to talk to people about books. And this was writing related, but it wasn't book related. And I worked in a bookstore even. I helped with some of the events there. And so there was always this like next to it, but trying to make it financially viable. And over the course of my career, what I realized is that I don't do well working for other people. I just don't. And so, because I need a very flexible schedule and I need to be in control of it. And also, I need a lot of time to read. And it turns out people don't really love if you want to read at work. And so I needed to find a way to make that my job. And what I also learned is taking a lot of writing workshops and being a part of this and having gotten a degree in psychology and my master's in psychology, and then my undergrad was in art history. I started to think about the creative process and what allows people to become a thriving creative and what holds them back. And a lot of that is not actually their talent or their ability to write a good story. It's really their ability to believe it's possible for them to do the work to finish a story that they can then put out into the world. And so I started working with people. I originally thought I would be a psychotherapist. I was on the track. I wanted to be a Jungian analyst. I thought this was great. But I wasn't really suited to being a psychotherapist. I wanted to be more active and I wanted to be more forward looking. And you're not really supposed to, as a therapist, say things like, well, let's go get it when people say they have a goal. So it was clear that my personality was more suited to coaching. And so I shifted over to that after having all of these jobs that got me near that. And then ultimately, I ended up building a practice alongside work, working with writers who wanted to finish books. And we looked at the things that were holding them back. I taught for a creative writing online school for a while and got comfortable advising people on the writing process. And then eventually it was really the pandemic because I was teaching for other places, but then a lot of them weren't equipped to do online teaching. They were in person. And so I was like, okay, I guess it's time for me to think about all these people are sitting at home thinking, one day, if I have the time, I'll write my book. And I said, guess what, everybody? I don't know if there's going to be a stronger message that that time is now, any other point in your life. So are you going to write it or not? And so I churned out about 5 courses in a year. I got really burnt out that year. But then the next year I reran them. And then since then I've been writing books on the topic. I've got one coming out in May. And then I've also been building my private practice. I've added workshops and other opportunities, a year-long writer membership and so on. And so that's how I've gotten to this point.
I love it. Okay, so you had these boxes that you were checking. I love how you were determined to find the right path for you. You didn't just say, I'll take whatever the traditional path is or whatever I got. No, I know how I want my life to look. I want to be, one, immersed in books, swimming in books, and 2, I don't want to work for someone else. I want to work for myself. And you checked off those boxes and you said, okay, well, and then there was the being a psychoanalyst, and I love that you have a degree in psychology. I want to come back to that when we talk more about marketing. But being a psychoanalyst wasn't quite the center of the bullseye for you for the reasons that you mentioned. And coaching is really the sweet spot for you. It lets you be your own boss. It lets you help people. And of course, you can specialize in coaching, and you specialize in book coaching. So I love that. I'm curious, how did you get those early clients?
Um, I am honestly, it's like they just showed up. I know that's not a great answer to give people, but I think I just started talking about what I was doing, and everybody always knows somebody. They're like, oh my God, my sister's been saying she wants to write a book for years. Can I send you my sister or whatever? I mean, this year I do a year-long membership for writers where we have co-writing sessions and we work together. And I have somebody this year that actually received the year-long membership as a gift from her husband because she had been saying, I really want to write instead of what I'm doing now. So he gave this as a token of his support, which was, she said it was the best gift she's ever gotten. So everyone was thrilled.
That is a great gift. Yeah. Well, I think it's like you said, it's so authentic, right? You didn't pick this because you wanted to make a ton of money for it. You have no interest in it, but you're like, okay, that's striking oil, is this book coaching thing, right? No, like this is you. And when you embody that and you talk about it and you're immersed in it, I think that's right. I think that's naturally what happens, is that people are attracted to that. But I also know that you have a great online presence now. So you have a website, you have a newsletter, you have a podcast. So was that an all of a sudden thing when you went from coaching, and it sounds like more warm networking, probably more like phone conversations, email kind of stuff, to an online business? Was that all of a sudden, or was that more of a transition?
I think the thing that came really first was the podcast. Because the podcast is now, so we're recording this in 2024. And so the podcast is about 9 years old at this point.
Congrats
Yeah,
on your almost 10-year anniversary. That's
I
big.
know. Yeah, we started in 2016, and that was right around the time I got my MA in psychology, and then I did coach people a bit with that background. But then ultimately I did do a coaching certification program, mostly because I was so afraid of overstepping the line. I kept thinking about things I wasn't allowed to do as a coach that, a licensed psychotherapist, say, can do. So I was feeling really inhibited and I wasn't sure how much space I had. And so I did this certification and felt like, oh, I actually have way more room than I thought. I have way more ability to work with people directly. It's really more the process and the forward looking and making plans and so on. But when personal stuff comes up, I feel well prepared to handle it. And so at the time when I finished that training and I was starting to see clients, I kept thinking about, okay, if I'm going to support people in writing books, I would love to have a library of resources available for them that would be advice not just for me. It was like, don't just take my word for it. Take, fill in the blank with your famous author that you admire's take. And so I started interviewing people to build up that library of resources. So the podcast is called The Secret Library, because I wanted it to be this sort of inspiration for this secret library that is somewhere full of all the books that haven't yet been written. And because I had worked in that bookstore, because I'd had that job, I had met a lot of authors, and I lived in Los Angeles at the time, and I had colleagues who had worked there and ended up becoming well-known novelists. I had people who then worked for presses, and so I interviewed them. And then once you hit one big guest, then you can say, oh, I think the first one that really hit it was Susan Orlean, who wrote, among many things, The Library Book and The Orchid Thief and all kinds of things. I met her at an event and I invited her on. And then after that, I could say, would you like to come on this show? Our previous guests have included Susan Orlean. And people thought, oh, at least Americans thought, oh, well, Susan Orlean has been on there. Well, I guess I could come on. And then I built from there.
I like that. Was that Book Soup? Was that the store?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I used to live right near that. I love that bookstore.
Yep. Yep.
Down
It was Book
Sunset.
Soup.
That's cool. Yeah, and you're right. Everyone who worked there knew a ton about books. This is, if you're listening, this is not, I like Barnes& and Noble. This is not Barnes& and Noble. Like everyone there is such a
No.
book nerd at Book Soup. It's on Sunset Boulevard in LA. One of the last kind of like indie bookstores, like its kind. And I would always walk by and they would have people packed in there sitting in chairs with someone speaking. And okay, so that was you helping to facilitate that.
Yeah, I was there for a couple of years, like from 2007 to 2009, I was there. And so I would work a lot of events and be there, and and then just people that you could not believe, A-list celebrities and stuff, would come in there and you'd be like, okay, let's pick out your cousin's birthday present. And so you were just constantly having these conversations. So it was wonderful because I got to do what I liked, which was talk about books all day. But it also meant that I had a network to draw on when I started the show. And I had my first probably 10 guests were straight out of Book Soup connections. And then building from there, as I got more, we had publishers. Penguin reached out probably maybe 6 months in and said, can we start sending you, potential guests? And I said, great. And so then we expanded from there.
Got it. Okay, so this is what brought you, this was the stepping stone into the online world.
For sure. I mean, I had always had a dream as a little kid, just like I always wanted to read books and talk about books. I also had this NPR fantasy, to the extent that my grandma, this is so ridiculous, but my grandma had this powder room, and it was like a little teeny bathroom right when you came in the front door. And it was just a toilet like directly opposite a mirror. And I would go hide in there. And I invented this radio show that I did all by myself, and it was called Bathroom Talks. And I don't even know if I even told anybody else about it. Because there was no room for anyone else in the bathroom. I would just sit in there and pretend I was hosting Bathroom Talks because I wanted to have a radio show so badly. So then when podcasts started off, I had a couple back in 2006, when it was just really difficult to edit, and I did it anyway. But then when it became easier in 2016, it was a natural to finally create something and do it on an ongoing basis.
Bathroom Talks. Oh my God, that is so cool.
It's the least glamorous option. I mean, I was like 5, so we have to give me some slack, but
No, I love it. That is so cute.
I can still see the wallpaper in my mind.
It's amazing how these memories stick with us, right?
Hmm.
That's so cool. Okay. Okay. So then you got the podcast going. You fulfilled the dream. It wasn't bathroom talks, but it was the next evolution of it.
Yeah.
And but around books. But then you are in a position now where you have this I would call it a rockin' online business where I know you still do coaching, but now you also have courses. You do an email newsletter as well. So talk about that transition from the podcast into your current reality and some of the things that you tried to figure out how the heck to do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the podcast has sort of been one track that has continued ever since then. But the first 3 years, we did an episode every single week. I don't care if it's Christmas. And, I am nothing if not enthusiastic when I start things. But then about 3 years into it, we had moved to Berlin and I was exhausted. So we went to a season model just so I need the experience of crossing things off and finishing them. So alongside that happening, I was working with people one-on-one. And so I built up the one-on-one. But given that I was having to interview somebody multiple times, it was a lot of interviewing. And so that was happening. And then there was a lot of time one-on-one with clients. And I am an introvert, hence my hiding in the bathroom at my grandmother's to create a radio show by myself. So this was a lot. And so I started to look at, are there ways that I can do this work so that I don't basically self-destruct and turn into a pile of dust? And so it wasn't going to be able to be one-on-one forever. And so I started to think about groups. And so then I started to run a group of people who wanted to work on their books together. And then I have a group that is still in very close contact years later. And so that was exciting to see, oh, yes, there's a particular dynamic I can have one-on-one, but if I work with a group, they can also support each other and there's an amplified effect. So developing that, I continued. And so then there was the idea of a group program. And during the course of 2020, when I said to everybody, hey, are you going to do this or not? I was working on a novel and I was revising it. And so what I did was I went on Instagram Live every single day, Monday through Friday, and I shared what was going on with me just as an accountability thing. And I thought, oh, if I can encourage other people to work on this, then great. And so people showed up and they started talking about where they were stuck with their writing. And I did that for a ridiculous amount of time. I think it was like 12 weeks or something. And during every day, Monday through Friday, I don't care how I feel. I don't care. The thought now, just like I break out in hives. But for whatever reason, that was how I reacted to lockdown. And that was the only socializing I was doing. So it was fine. And through that, I heard so many examples, but also themes and repetitive sort of stuck points that people had. So I thought, okay, I can create a course around this. So I did. I created a 13-week program called Dream to Draft. And it was an intensive program where people would go through 13 weeks together and they would write a draft of their novel. And so then I started to run it. And then I reran it and refined it. I also created a course on revision called The Next Draft. And I did other courses on creativity and so on. And I just kept looking at themes and then I would spin them out into a course. And I just kept doing that over and over again until I got totally exhausted. And this seems to be my theme. I try something, I go all in until I get totally exhausted. And then I think, okay, how am I going to adjust this? And what it looks like now, because as we've sort of come out of the lockdown process, it's harder for people to commit. People aren't just stuck at home. It was like, thank God I'm going to spend 13 weeks writing this novel at first. But now it's more modular. So it's become more thematic. So we have a year-long program, but we address a theme each month. And so people commit to a year, but they get to see where their project is. It's not, maybe they're not working on a novel right now, but they want to learn about something like submitting to contests, or they want to learn about how to have a regular habit or what to do when they get stuck. So it's then spun into this annual membership where people build a community, but it's really much more about writing alongside your real life because you have more of a real life again. And even along that, I still have private clients. But the other thing is that I keep refining the process of running this each year, and it gets easier and the admin gets easier and my assistant and I have a better system. And so now the other piece that's come in is that I'm having more time to write my own stuff. So I was able to really set aside much more time the first part of this year to finish a nonfiction book I've had sort of on the back burner for a year and a half and just write it. I've got to, it's going to come out in May. So that's sort of how this has all evolved.
Well, I'm excited about your book. Congrats. That's very cool.
Thank you.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing is, yeah, the lockdown, COVID-19, it was a real forcing function for a lot of businesses, and you really had to adapt. And then when all that was lifted, you had to adapt again. And that's a key thing. And we talk about that in our book, Simple Marketing for Smart People, how you can be a great marketer and you can have great content and a great message and everything. But there are these external forces that are very powerful. And if you try to fight them, you're going to lose. And so you need to adapt to them. And so you adapted your product catalog and your offerings because suddenly people, they were free, right? They weren't just stuck inside anymore. And so I love that you were so nimble, and I think that's a good lesson for all our listeners. I'm curious, what differences were there, if any, in selling one-on-one spots and then going into selling a group program?
I think it's a different client. So to me, there's a very different experience working with someone one-on-one. So when I work with someone one-on-one, it's all about them and their project. And usually it's someone who has a very specific book idea, and they're either looking for support to complete the actual writing of said book, or it's someone who's putting together an idea. I get more nonfiction people in one-on-one. I get fiction as well. But I find that there's an organization and an accountability, and they kind of want the stern teacher who's going to, wag a finger or give them a gold star when they do that. But it's also someone who doesn't have time necessarily to show up for all the meetings that are available for a group community. And the group person is often a fiction writer. We've had memoir and playwrights in there as well, a little bit of television too. But where part of it is building an identity as a writer, and they want to be around other writers, and the other members of the community are just as important as I am. And so being able to interact with people and feel like, oh, I have friends who do this too, is a huge part of the process. And so I think they're just different people with different needs. And so what I usually do is, if someone's unsure, or they know they want to do something with me, this is usually what happens, then they'll book a consult, and then we'll figure out which one feels, it's usually pretty clear which way they want to go.
Interesting. So they're normally pulled to one or the other, the one-on-one or the group.
Yeah.
Got it. So having that insight now, does that influence your marketing?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I find that one-on-one people are going to find me. They'll hear me on the podcast and they will reach out and contact me if they're interested. So most of my marketing goes more towards group. Like the things that I drip into is examples of how I work with clients or students. Like in this program, we did this. A lot of it is referencing working with groups, because I think that also the one-on-one people are confident. They're clear. Generally, they're like, I know I need accountability. I want to do this. I want to take myself seriously. Let's do it kind of feeling. But the group people are often more shy and they're like, I don't know. I don't know. Am I allowed to be a writer? Am I allowed to hang out with other writer people? So they need a little bit more encouragement. So I find that talking to them and I write a lot about the fact that all writers feel doubt and that all writers think, is this nonsense? I mean, I'm sure you could speak to this from writing a book yourself, that there's points when you're like, is this going to work? Am I crazy? Is this a good idea? And that isn't an indication that you're not allowed to be a writer or that you're not part of the group. It's actually an indication that you are. So I find that kind of material is really what gives them the feeling of permission and inclusion that means they could step into a group.
Yeah, and yeah, you're totally right. I'm writing this book called Simple Marketing for Smart People, and the whole time I'm like, is this dumb? Is this really dumb?
And then you're like, what if I'm not a smart person? Am I allowed to write this?
Yeah,
It's so intense.
Total imposter syndrome. Yeah, I didn't realize the pressure I was putting myself by writing smart person on the
Totally.
cover.
Oh, God.
Oh,
Brutal,
man. I know.
but also amazing.
Yeah, thank you. But that makes a lot of sense. And so, in the book we talk about belief building, and about this. You've learned my 5 light bulbs approach and the idea of giving voice to these different light bulbs, and really reassuring them. And in sales, I guess they might call it answering objections. But in your case, for this group program, it sounds like it's not so much your marketing language, not so much the big outcome that you're promising. You're going to write the book and achieve this, 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 and this. I'm sure you do that, but it sounds like a lot of your marketing message and the belief building you were doing was more around the confidence building and the group as a way, and selling the group as a way to say, well, we're all in this together. And yeah, it might be scary, and I totally get that, but you're not alone. Is that accurate?
Yes, for sure.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that it's about presenting anecdotes that feel familiar to them, which, we talked about a lot in the time I learned from you and still do. But it's the idea that you can present a scene. I mean, writing is all about scenes. So, but where they're sitting there staring at the page and thinking, is there any way I can do this? Is there anything else to say? Or what if I don't have enough ideas to fill a whole book? Or what if there aren't enough moments, there aren't enough scenes? I just wrote something about this week, that people worry that they're not going to be able to carry a whole book, when in reality, they usually have so much that they could fill like a trilogy. If I had $1 for every time I worked with a client or talked to a student about their book idea, and they're like, and then this happens, and then this, because they're afraid that they don't have enough oomph and enough story to get through the whole book. And I'm like, I think you have a series because you've resolved this issue, but then they're going off on another adventure, kind of metaphorically. And then this is happening. Then we got a twist over here. I'm like, no, you got at least 2 to 3 books. And then they think, oh no, because you have to sink in and really experience the moments. It's not just an itinerary of moments when you write a novel, it's going through them and really digging into it. So I think that shift is also an example of, hey, you think you don't have enough to write a book, which a lot of people think they don't, but here's why that's not true. And you probably actually have way more than you realized.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of writing a book is trimming things away.
Oh, totally.
It's so much of it.
Oh, especially nonfiction. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't write a nonfiction book that looks like, Outlander. That just is not going to work.
Yeah, the first feedback I got from my editor, she said, "You have a short and lively book." And I said, "Great." That's exactly what I want, because I hate those nonfiction books, those business books that, it's almost a meme now. Hey, this could have been a blog post. I did not want that. And so much of that was, I wouldn't say trimming away. Yeah, a better way to say it is compressing or distilling, just getting down to the essence of it.
Exactly. Well, I know who you were working with when you were writing this. So distill was bound to be part of it.
Oh, yeah. That guy, he loves the word distill. So do
He
I.
does. He does.
Thanks,
But
Tiago.
that's an important part of marketing as well. I find is that not overwhelming people with too much information.
Right. Yes, exactly. Giving them what they need. And this is again what we talk about in the book, this chain of beliefs. And in five light bulbs terms, it would be the mistake of jumping right into your light bulb four, which is presenting your offer before you've hit on or turned on light bulb one, which is empathizing with the person, making them feel seen and heard. If you don't do that, then you don't get that buy-in that you need to get them to eventually buy your product. And that means just giving them enough of that message and at the right time and not overwhelming them. So you're right, distillation is a big part of marketing.
Well, I think the other piece too is the difference between, yeah,
Hey, Kat.
I know. It's Clyde.
What's our friend's name? Clyde?
It's Clyde, yeah.
Hey,
He was
Clyde.
on top of the bookcase. This is about the time of day when they appear. But is that people have a sense of what they want in order to resolve the issue. Like people have a sense of what they think their problem is and why they can't finish this book. And in my experience, that sense that they have is usually almost never correct. Usually what people will come with is that they think they need more discipline, they need to be stricter with themselves, they need a lot of no pain, no gain kind of experience in order to finish the book. And nobody does things that they think they're terrible at. And nobody does things that they think, oh, I'm doing an awful job, I'm going to keep going. That's just not going to happen, especially if it's essentially optional. And so part of my job is to shift them to a model where it's fun and where they love it. And so therefore they want to keep doing it. But what I have learned is that I cannot tell them that in the marketing, because if I present, because it's too, we would say in psychology, like ego dystonic. It doesn't match their concept of reality. And so if I'm telling them have fun writing a book, they think, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. There's no way that's going to work. But instead, if I say things like create structures that will allow you to finish your book, or we will, be held accountable in community. What they don't know, even though I'm telling you this on a podcast that people will hear, so shh, don't tell my people, is that they're not going to be yelled at in the community. In the community, they're going to get a fun calendar to put stickers on every day that they wrote, and they're going to enjoy doing that, so they will keep writing. The result is the same. You don't go into a bookstore and say, oh, I bet that person had a calendar and they put stickers on it while they were writing. I'm not going to read that. Nobody knows. It doesn't matter. But I've had to find a way to tell the story in a way that they can digest. I'm not going to lie and say, come join my boot camp where I yell at you. And then I say, just kidding. That's not what we're doing at all. But if they have the sense of safety that they'll be held accountable and that this is a structure and that they can trust themselves in it, and then they learn, oh, actually, this doesn't have to be an experience where I feel miserable the whole time, then that's a bonus.
What's that term again from psychology?
Ego dystonic, or like ego dysphoria. It's like where
Ego
it's,
dysphoria.
if something is ego dystonic, it doesn't match your belief about yourself. I'm sure somebody is listening and saying that's not exactly the definition. So you'll have to forgive me that I'm not in psychology academia anymore actively.
There's always going to be that person out there.
Oh, I know.
I like
hello,
it.
hello, that person. I am sometimes you, so I get it.
Yeah, we've all been. But okay, I love that. That aligns so well with what we talk about in Simple Marketing for Smart People, meeting people where they are, instilling the right belief at the right time. Because if you jump, and you know what, and I work with a lot of experts, smart people, right? And this is one of those curses of being the expert, is that you want to jump right into your thing, and you're so just deep in the weeds of it that you forget what it's like back at the surface. But if you don't meet people here, you're never going to get them down here.
No, I had this experience very early. This was shortly after Bathroom Talks. But so I'm an older sister. My brother is 6'6" and I am not. So people often think he is older because I don't know. I guess people in their 90s are apparently 7 feet tall. We've never understood the logic, but I appreciate being considered younger. But he's 3.5 years younger. And when I remember being in school and I was in third grade and he was in first grade or something. I've probably got the math wrong. But I remember thinking, if I can just help him learn this math, he'll be so far ahead if I could just help him learn long division. And he was just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But I would like sit him down and we had a blackboard. I was like, this is going to be great. You're going to be the smartest kid in class. And I would try to teach him this stuff that he had absolutely no foundation to understand. And it's the same thing as being the expert as a teacher or a coach and trying to hit somebody with something that they don't have the experience and foundation to trust that this next step is going to work for them.
And do you think that, I mean, we're talking about marketing. Do you think that
Yeah.
most people see this as marketing? When they think of marketing, they think about this conversation?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they think of it as, I mean, a lot of the associations you'll hear are things like swindling or manipulating or other such things. But to me, one of my main philosophies in life, how much are we allowed to swear on this show?
Go for it.
Okay. One of my main philosophies in life is don't do me any fucking favors. I actually have a friend who put it in a cross stitch at one point. I was very envious of this hanging in her house. And so it's like, I don't want someone to join my program or to work with me unless they feel like it's a really great thing for them to do. So I feel like my job in all of my marketing material is to be really clear. I mean, with that caveat of maybe not telling them about the sticker calendar in advance, unless they're stationary junkies, in which case I talk about it a lot. I want them to be really aware of what they're signing up for and what kind of experience they're going to have, because I don't want them to do something that's not going to work for them. That said, I do often have a no refund policy, but it's not because I want anyone to do me any fucking favors. It's because people have a tendency to sign up for something like this, take their creativity seriously, and then freak out and come up with a reason that they can't do it. And I don't want them to let themselves off the hook and not go for it. So that's the other thing I'm really clear about. I'm like, once you're in, you're in. And so we will show up for you, but know what you're signing up for, and we're going to give you as much information as we can, so that's a good decision for you.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, especially with something like writing a book. Yeah, you burn the boats behind you, right? You're doing this. You're in.
Yep, exactly. That's the only way, I find, because writing a book is something you have to do with absolutely no evidence that you're able to do it, while trusting it's going to work out fine.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who finish the books and keep going are the ones who, despite whatever is going on, believe, no, if I keep working on this, I will figure it out. And you have to do that. It's like that scene, I think, all the time of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when he has to walk across that chasm.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of your imagery from Five Light Bulbs, actually, but that there's this, you can't see the bridge, but you have to trust that it's there and that you will get to the other side where the book is written.
Yeah, it's a lot like entrepreneurship itself, which is
Yes, it's true.
very character building, to put it lightly.
Yeah, in the moment, it doesn't look pretty all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a moment that I call like the crying at the dinner table. This book is a disaster. You know, everybody hits that point. But again, that's normal. That doesn't mean that your book is not salvageable or it won't work out. That's a rite of passage for all writers.
So, in your career, you were zigging and zagging, trying to find just the right fit for you that checked these boxes, and you really found it with coaching. But I'm wondering, what did it feel like when you realized, oh my gosh, I can make money from online courses?
That was really a fun couple of years when that was, you know, when people wanted to take courses as much as I wanted to make them. And it was just like a dance party in that moment. Like 2020 and 2021 from our business was like, oh, I've got this idea. Everyone was like, great, let's do it. And there was such an empowering moment of knowing that, okay, this isn't just about one client getting help in this moment and transforming. It was like, there's going to be 20, 25 of us all working towards these books. And it felt so good to think that these books that might not otherwise have existed, that, in one intensive, that we could have people moving huge leaps forward on 25 books. Yeah. And, the thought that I could have that kind of impact was astonishing, really.
Well, I love that, and we'll wrap it up there because that's such a great point to make. And we talk about that in the book, the difference between sales and marketing, where sales is more of a one-on-one thing, and that is really the best way to enroll someone in something is if you can have a conversation with them, but you don't have much leverage, and you can only have so many one-on-one conversations with people, and so that's where this thing marketing comes into play. And instead of 1-to-1, it's 1 to 5,000 or 10,000 or 50,000. And you're seeing the fruits of that in your business. You're seeing all these books that are now in the world because of many reasons, but one, because of marketing. Because you put out a marketing message that resonated. It was a one-to-many message that contained the beliefs that people needed in order to trust you and to take the next step and then the next step and then finally the step to invest with you. And because you hit send on that email, there's all these new books in the world. And that's why I'm such a big believer in marketing.
I love it. It's true. It's true. It's magic.
Yeah, it's magic. That's good. Well, thank you so much, Caroline. And where can people find you?
Well, they can find me a number of places. And thank you so much for having me. It's such a treat as a podcast host, to be the guest. I love it. They can find me. I know, it's so great. They can find me primarily at carolinedonahue.com. That's my home on the web, where pretty much everything links off of that. They can also find the podcast at secretlibrarypodcast.com. And if you link from, it's on carolinedonahue.com. I also have a whole hangout on Substack that is building. So that has been a really fun community to be part of also.
Cool. Well, yes, everyone, please check out Caroline. And especially if you are interested in writing a book, she is the person to go to. So thanks so much, Caroline. Good luck.
Thank you.